My name's Kayla, or you can call me Kayla Loves Point Salad. I am here today to talk to you about a few different interventions that you could use if you're in a situation where you are currently applying play therapy with children who are victims of trauma, or, and I really want to emphasize this, any of these therapeutic techniques can easily be integrated if you're a teacher and you're working with younger children, or even just as a parent if you want to enable your child to start to use these skills. Okay, so the baseline of the techniques relates to trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, or TF-CBT, and it's also overlaid with play therapy because, as we've seen in the literature, play is the language of children, and so it is very conducive for them to be able to communicate maybe things that aren't as easily accessed without play. And so one of the first techniques that I'm going to be addressing is identification of feelings, because we want to empower children to be able to speak their truth and to be able to accurately describe their experiences in a way that's understandable for the adult and that will allow them to process through their feelings. Okay? The game that I'm going to use today to allow us to do that is Kerplunk. So this version of Kerplunk is from Mattel Games, but it has been printed multiple times, and so any version that you find will be perfectly substantial. So I'm just going to take a second, I'm going to set up the game, and then we'll come back. Okay, and then once you've set up the game, I'm just going to familiarize anyone who doesn't remember this game maybe from being a child, but the basic premise is that you have a tube that's present here. You're going to use plastic staffs that will stick through holes in order to block the path that marbles are going to be sitting on top. And so the objective of the game is fairly straightforward. You want to remove a staff one at a time without causing all of the marbles to crescendo, right? Okay, so you have 3 different colors. And so at the onset of the game, before you even begin, you're going to want to have a conversation about the child that you're working with, and you're going to want to speak to them about what kinds of emotions can they think of, can they give you a list of examples, and then you're going to have them assign an emotion to each available color in your game. Okay? Typically, you'd probably hear angry for red, happy for yellow, and for green, because it hasn't been mentioned already, they may say something like sad. But it's really important to allow them to come up with the meanings and the representations and to allow them to take ownership of those feelings in that way. Okay, so after you guys have agreed on what the meaning is for each of the colors, you'll explain the general gameplay to them and let them know that they will be removing one staff at a time, and that each time that they do, they're going to have to speak an emotion that was based on that color, right? The reason that doing an activity like this is so helpful with children or preteens, or especially maybe teenagers, is because if they're avoiding wanting to delve into a particular emotion, a game like this incentivizes them having to choose some of each color, right? Because if there's, and if any of you guys have played this game before, you know that there are certain situations where there's that one that you can't remove or everything's going to fall. So that may encourage them, rather than just picking another easy emotion choice like the yellow to talk about something happy, but they may need to speak about something sad. Or sometimes people have difficulty talking about anger, and so they may need to take one of those. So you usually go, I wait until the child has at least one of each color, and then once that's happened and you're still playing the game, assuming that nobody has dropped all of the marbles down, then you're going to encourage them to treat the next round differently, which is going to mean that not only will they express an emotion when they choose a staff of a particular color, but you'll want to encourage them to start thinking of what are some synonyms or what are some related words that could express that emotion as well. We're trying to teach them and empower them to use as specific of language when talking about their emotions as they can, right? So maybe if they're describing an event and they chose the sad, maybe they talk about their first day at a new school and how nobody sat with them at lunch and they felt sad. That would be a teaching opportunity to talk to them about the word lonely. And so they would be building up their emotional vocabulary, and they would also be starting to build that confidence to speak and to use those terms, right? So you're going to do that and continue to play until someone has let them all fall, right? And something that I also like to do if it's pretty early on and I'm working with a child who seems fairly confident with these skills, I will sometimes, because you're going to be going back and forth, so you'll also be choosing some. And obviously, you're going to want to choose appropriate level emotions that you're going to share. So I usually stick to things that I remember from when I was a kid. So, I remember being really happy when I went on a trip with my family because we were all together and it was nice to spend that time with them. And so I felt happy, right? And then maybe when I'm giving them a synonym term for that, I would also say, I felt really loved, right? And so to help them to build that. But as you guys are going back and forth, and if the child seems to be understanding, then it's nice to try to question them about after they hear your story, did you select the best word, right? Did you use the best word that you could use? Or can they think of something that would have been an even better word to use? And so that way they can really start to think critically from someone else. So they're also going to be learning that empathy of how to listen to someone else's story and feel their emotions and be able to share in that connection with them. Okay? So I hope that you guys have a great time utilizing this intervention technique for play therapy in helping for children to start to define emotions.